The first report filed by researcher Kelmor of the Virellian Science Accord was succinct. Human behavior exhibits alarming disregard for self-preservation. Recommend species be labeled reckless, Class 2. That was 3 days before the incident aboard the Ardent Grace. The ship was a collaboration, a diplomatic and scientific vessel built jointly by the Virellians and humans, crewed by both. It orbited Kepler 442b, cataloging the biosphere while testing interspecies integration protocols. The humans called it the floating handshake. Researcher Kelmor had no hands, but he understood metaphors. He didn't like them. Why would he dangle himself by a single tether? Kelmor's tone had a mechanical stutter, not due to emotion, but the translator struggling with exasperation. His 2 main ocular stalks tracked a video feed of a human floating outside the hull, legs kicking gently, tethered by what looked like a glorified bungee cord. Commander Alric Maddox laughed at the monitor. He's fixing an antenna, Kelmor. In a solar storm zone? He's got shielding. And brass ones. I do not understand the relevance of metallic reproductive organs. Figure of speech. Kelmor made a sound that was not a sigh but served the same purpose. Alric leaned forward, tugging a protein bar from his vest pocket. His uniform was unzipped halfway down, revealing a sweat-darkened undershirt. The environmental systems hadn't adjusted well to the Virellian humidity preferences, and the humans were perpetually damp. You know, Alric said between bites, you could volunteer for the next maintenance round. Get some fresh plasma in those tubes of yours. I am observing. You're judging. Correct. The human outside specialist Clara Nevin finished her work with a thumbs up to the camera. She retracted along the tether like a spider on silk. Kelmor cataloged it all. Reckless propulsion. Casual exposure to radiation. Unnecessary acrobatics. When Alric stood, Kelmor followed, gliding smoothly on 6 legs. Where are you going? Kelmor asked. Bridge. We're passing the southern pole. Need to check on the geothermal scans. I will accompany you. There is a pattern of inefficient delegation among your crew I wish to document. Sure, Alric said, patting the door panel. Come watch us do things the hard way. The bridge was a panoramic dome of reinforced composite with humans and Virellians stationed at mixed consoles. The crew had slowly learned each other's systems, and there were fewer translation errors these days. Fewer, not none. Commander, said Ensign Darcy Weller as she turned from her console. We've got a signal. Emergency beacon. Surface level, northern hemisphere. It's human. Weak signal, might be damaged. Alric crossed the deck in 3 strides. That's not one of ours. Coordinates match the Terran Research Group's outpost. The one that went dark last cycle. Kelmor's dorsal frons straightened. That station was presumed lost. No life signs were detected. Signal just started transmitting. Could be a battery finally kicking in. Or someone fixed it. Or someone survived. Alric's voice changed. The humor drained out. Prep the dropship, he said. I'm heading down. Kelmor froze. You are the commanding officer. You should not risk yourself. I'm not risking. I'm rescuing. Big difference. You have others who can. It's my call. Kelmor didn't argue. This was not a debate he could win. Instead, he followed Alric to the hangar, documenting every decision with clinical detachment. The dropship, a hybrid model with both human and Virellian systems, powered up with a low hum. Clara Nevin was already inside, strapping herself in. You're flying? Alric asked. Unless you want me to let the AI do it. God, no. They launched through the lower bay, the ship's artificial gravity cutting off with a lurch. Kelmor remained magnetized to the wall, his vision adjusting to the swirling clouds below. The descent was rough. Kepler 442b had unpredictable thermal updrafts, and the dropship bucked like it was trying to escape its own mission. By the time they broke through the cloud cover, Alric's knuckles were white. There, Clara pointed. That ridge? Signals coming from that crevice. The outpost had been built into a canyon to avoid wind shear. Now it looked half-collapsed. One antenna blinked weakly, barely above the rockfall. They landed on a flat outcrop about 50 meters from the station. Alric grabbed his gear oxygen mask, thermal suit, Mekit then looked at Kelmor. Coming? I do not perform field rescues. Suit yourself. Alric and Clara moved out, boots crunching on dry dust. The wind howled low and constant, enough to make speech difficult. Kelma stayed by the dropship, sensors tracking the two humans as they approached the ruin. Alric shouted over the wind, entrances caved in. We'll have to cut through. Clara pulled out a plasma cutter, its glow flickering in the dim light. Kelma watched, silently logging every moment. After several minutes, Clara stepped back. Got it. Alric slipped through first. His comm crackled. Tunnels intact. Smells like rust and mold. Clara followed. Her signal dipped but held. Then silence. Kelma adjusted his receiver. Commander, respond. Nothing. He waited exactly 2 minutes and 20 seconds before overriding his previous directive. He moved. Inside the station, the air was stale and heavy. Kelma didn't breathe, but he could detect trace gases. There was blood too. Not fresh. He found them in the main lab. Alric was kneeling beside a woman, her legs pinned under a collapsed support beam. Clara was bracing the beam with a shattered table leg. She's alive, Alric said. But she's dehydrated and probably hypothermic. No idea how bad the leg is. Clara looked strained. Beams shifting. Kelma scanned the structure. This support will fail in 90 seconds. Then help me lift it. I do not have the strength. Then find something that does. Kelma moved fast. He scuttled back to the dropship, ignoring the wind, the slope, the risk. He ripped out 2 segments of the cargo railing and returned. Alric wedged one under the beam. On 3. 1, 2, 3. They lifted. Clara pulled the woman free. Her name was Dr. Camille Nairn. She was conscious but barely. Fractured femur. Maybe pelvis. We move her wrong, she'll bleed out, Clara said. We can't wait for evac, Alric replied. We carry her. You'll tear something. I've carried worse. Kelma watched as Alric bent down, carefully lifting Camille into his arms. His face twisted with effort. They moved slowly, 100 steps at a time. Clara cleared the path ahead. Kelmor walked beside them, monitoring vitals, suggesting angles, doing what he could. They reached the dropship after 27 minutes. Alric collapsed into a seat, sweat pouring down his face. Camille was unconscious again. Clara started in 4. We need to get her stable before we lift off. Alric nodded. Kelmor studied him. You should not have been able to carry her that far under these conditions. I shouldn't have had to. You risked your life. Multiple times? I save lives. It's kind of my thing. Back aboard the Ardent Grace, the medbay worked fast. Camille survived. Her leg was broken. Pelvis cracked. She would need months of therapy. Alric's back tore a muscle. He was grounded for 2 weeks. 3 days later, Kelma filed a second report. Initial classification incomplete. While humans exhibit dangerous risk tolerance, they also display remarkable empathy and prioritization of others' survival above their own. Recommend reclassification. Reckless, Class 2, with addendum capable of extraordinary care. The medbay's ambient lights dimmed every 5 seconds. A Virellian design meant to mimic the bioluminescent tide cycles of their homeworld. The human patients hated it. One had taped glow sticks to the wall in protest. Another rigged a motion sensor that made the lights freeze in daytime mode whenever someone walked by. Neither solution had lasted long. Clara Nevin sat cross-legged on the bench near the diagnostics wall, elbows on knees, watching the readout scroll across the translucent panel. Dr. Camille Nairn lay sedated on the central biobed, pale under a thermal blanket. Her breathing was steady, shallow but even. The synthetic traction splint kept her hips aligned while the foredrip regulated electrolytes and low-dose pain management. Kelma stood nearby, motionless except for the occasional flick of his upper antennae, which twitched each time the monitor beeped. She's metabolizing fluids better than projected, Clara said. Kidneys are kicking back in. That's something. Her red cell count remains low, Kelma replied. The transfusion compatibility matrix has yet to clear. We're working on that. She's an AB negative. Rare even among humans. Why is your species' blood not universally interchangeable? Because evolution doesn't care about convenience. Kelmor did not blink. He had no eyelids. But he tilted his head a few degrees, the Virellian equivalent of a shrug. Beside the medbed, Alric sat on a wheeled stool, his right arm in a sling and a compression brace wrapped around his lower spine. He hadn't moved in almost 20 minutes, aside from sipping periodically from a hydration packet. "She said anything yet?" he asked without looking up. Clara shook her head. "Still out. Better for now. Her heart rate spikes when she's conscious. Probably thinks she's still under the rubble." "Wouldn't blame her." Kelmor leaned in slightly. "Is it common for humans to recover from such trauma with no chemical sedation?" "She's not unsedated. Just on minimal dosing. We don't knock people out unless there's a reason. She has multiple fractures. She is a reason. Pain management isn't the same as unconsciousness," Clara replied. "Too much sedation slows respiratory drive. Risk of pneumonia, especially in a low-gravity environment like this one where fluid pools in the lower lungs." Kelma tapped a note into his tablet. "You compensate for planetary physics during recovery?" Clara exhaled through her nose. "Recovery's not one size fits all, Kelmor. That's kind of the point." Alric finally looked up. She was rationing moldy protein bars and licking condensation off a coolant pipe. "You think she's going to be undone by a broken bone?" "I do not make predictions," Kelma said. "I record outcomes." Behind them, the door slid open with a soft hiss. Ensign Weller stepped in holding a nutrient pack and a stack of diagnostics tablets. "We got partial compatibility from the clone-grown reserves. It's not a clean match, but we can supplement with artificial plasma. Should stabilize her pressure." Clara took the packet. "About time." Weller tilted her head at Kelmor. "You still watching like a ghost at a funeral?" "I do not understand that metaphor." "Didn't expect you to." He followed her gaze to the patient. "I am observing reactions. Human recovery patterns do not follow linear projections." "Neither do human moods," Clara added. "You want predictability? Find a rock." Alric huffed. "Even rocks crack if you drop them from high enough." "Was that intended to be profound?" Kelmor asked. "No. Just tired." Hours passed in a blur of fluid top-ups, vitals checks, and silent pacing. Camille stirred once, eyes flickering open to the overhead lights. She didn't speak, but her hand twitched toward her side instinctively. Clara caught it and pressed a warm pad into her palm. She calmed. No words exchanged. By the next rotation cycle, the swelling in her leg had begun to recede. The bone regenerator had been applied in a staggered dosage too fast and the tissue could calcify out of alignment. Alric had been wheeled out to rest 2 hours earlier, grumbling the whole way. Kelmor remained. Just after the next cycle began, Camille opened her eyes again. This time she stayed awake. Clara leaned in. "You know where you are?" Camille blinked slowly. "Grace. Mebe. What year is it? Still the bad one?" Clara smiled. "Close enough." Kelma stepped forward. "Your survival was statistically improbable. Do you recall how you endured for over a week underground?" Camille looked at him, then at Clara. "Is that the insect linguist?" "He prefers xenoethnographer," Clara said. "Then he can wait till I pee," Camille muttered. Clara grinned and turned off the diagnostics panel. "You heard the woman." Kelmor stayed silent until Camille returned from the assisted hygiene unit. Her steps were halting, but she insisted on walking with only a single support crutch. Clara hovered nearby in case she collapsed. She didn't. Once seated again, Camille looked at Kelmor. "You wanted data. Fine. I rationed everything. Power cells, saline, even thoughts. You think too much about dying, you start to believe it. You used a coolant pipe for hydration? I insulated it with thermal wrap, caught condensation, kept it sterile with iodine tabs from the emergency pack. That would not have been sufficient for long-term hydration. It wasn't, but I wasn't planning for long-term. Just long enough." Kelma nodded slowly, then scribbled something on his wrist-mounted recorder. "Your survival was not due to luck." "No," she said. "It was spite. Spite." I wasn't going to die just because someone filed the wrong maintenance request. Kelmor paused. Would you elaborate? The antenna relay burned out. Power surge. I flagged it twice before the storm. Nobody responded. I went up myself. One thing led to another. Next thing I know, I'm arguing with a rock. You mean, metaphorically? No, literally. I named it Calvin. He kept trying to crush my leg. We had disagreements. Kelmor continued recording. Later that same day, Alric returned, walking stiffly but upright. He stood at the medbay door for a while before entering. Camille looked up. You look like you lost a wrestling match with a meat grinder. You should see the meat grinder. Clara raised her hands. No dumb jokes. Camille's vitals just stabilized. Don't spike her heart rate. Alric nodded. You remember much? Enough. You carried me. Regret it already. You should. He sat beside her bed, both of them quiet for a moment. Clara took that as her cue and left the room. Kelmor lingered. Camille glanced at him. You always hover like that? I do not hover. I observe. Feels like hovering. Alric leaned back. He's trying to understand how we survive everything we shouldn't. Let me guess, Camille said. He's writing a report. Probably 17. I hope one's titled, How to Recover from Shattered Hips While Insulting a Rock. Kelmor's head twitched. I will consider that. Camille turned toward him more fully. You want to understand? Try getting buried alive with no guarantee anyone's coming. Then wake up to find someone dragged you through a windstorm while dislocating their spine. Then ask yourself why they did it. I have already asked. And I am still compiling. Alric stood. Come on, Kelmor. Let her rest. Kelmor hesitated, then backed away. As they exited, Camille called after them. Next time you write about us, make sure you spell stubborn right. Kelmor paused. Does that begin with a silent H? Alric laughed. Close enough. The mess hall was mostly empty, lit by the low amber hue that signaled the ship's sleep cycle. A few Virellians perched along the ceiling-mounted platforms, digesting nutrient gel and discussing gravitational anomalies in hushed tones. A single human crewman snored softly at a rear table, face buried in a tray of untouched rehydrated noodles. No one disturbed him. Kelmor stood at the central dispenser, blinking at the interface. He had never ordered food from the human side, and the menu's insistence on presenting choices was, to him, a form of aggression. Clara stepped in, rubbing a hand through her flattened hair. If you press that one, she said, pointing to an icon labeled breakfast sandwich, you get something that smells like regret and tastes like burnt ambition. That is not a helpful description. Exactly. He selected it anyway. The dispenser rattled, hissed, and released a foil-wrapped object that steamed slightly. The scent was indeed assertive. Clara reached for a tea bulb. Camille's up. Ate half a protein wafer and asked if we'd saved any of the moldy ones. She appears to associate hardship with comfort. No, she just has a terrible sense of humor. Kelma watched the bulb in her hand inflate slightly with heat. Does she understand the extent of her injuries? She asked if she'd be able to dance again, then asked if she ever could. A nearby Virellian adjusted his gravity harness and clicked his mandibles in amusement. Clara raised her tea bulb in greeting. He blinked both sets of eyes and floated away. Kelmor turned back to her. I wish to observe her recovery firsthand, but she has requested privacy. She'll allow one visitor per shift. You're not on the list. I could appeal to the commander. You could. But he's dealing with supply chain reports and trying to convince the Virellian quartermaster that humans don't thrive on bioluminescent kelp paste. I will wait. It might be a while. I brought a chair. He unfolded it from a compartment in his lower carapace. Clara stared. Did you just carry that in you? It is collapsible. I need to lie down. Kelma settled into his chair with a soft mechanical hiss. Clara sipped her tea. 2 hours later, after the artificial lights began their gradual brightening phase to simulate dawn, Kelmor received a message ping. Camille had added him to her visitor list. He arrived at the medbay 3 minutes later. Camille was already halfway through a stretching regimen, one crutch leaning against the wall, ankle rotated outward. Her face was pale but not gray, and the tension in her shoulders had eased. "You get special permission to hover again?" she asked without looking up. "I am not hovering. I am seated," she grunted, pulling her good leg into a bent hold. "Did they brief you on my recovery plan?" "I reviewed the schedule. You are expected to begin assisted walking within 6 hours. I started 3 ago. That was not advised." "I wasn't asking." Kelmor observed her posture. "You are compensating with your thoracic spine. It may result in misalignment." She dropped her leg and exhaled. "You're very encouraging. I am not offering motivation. I am offering data." "Great. Data always helped me climb stairs. You are not cleared for stairs." "I know." He watched as she reached for her crutch and stood. Her movement was deliberate, weight shifting over the uninjured side. She took 3 steps forward, paused, then turned. "Pain level?" he asked. 6 out of 10. That is suboptimal. It's better than 8. Is that how you determine progress? It's how I determine I'm not dead. Kelma noted the way she braced herself automatically before sitting again. Your circulation is improving. Peripheral temperature has stabilized. You are not shivering. I'm not cold. You were during the first recovery cycle. She blinked. You were watching. I do not require permission to observe. Only to interact. Well, now you've got both. Silence settled between them. The hum of the medbay's filtration system filled the space, gentle and constant. "Why are you here, Kelmor?" she asked finally. "I am reassessing human classification metrics." "And? You are difficult to categorize." "That's not new. Your species displays inconsistent thresholds for self-preservation, resilience, and emotional regulation. You endure extreme conditions yet fail to plan for avoidable ones." "You're not wrong. You risked exposure to internal hemorrhage by moving before clearance." "I needed to prove I could." "To whom?" "To myself." Kelma tilted his head slightly. "That is illogical. That's human." He tapped a note into his recorder. "Motivated by internal validation. Secondary to survival. Prioritizes autonomy over safety. Now you're getting it." He paused. "Why did you not signal when the relay failed?" "I did. Twice." No one answered. "Then why attempt the repair alone?" "I assumed the system error was localized. Didn't want to delay transmissions. There was a window for planetary data. I didn't want to miss it. You prioritized data over personal risk. I didn't think it would collapse. That is not unusual among your kind." She leaned back against the medbed's raised panel. "Maybe not, but I wasn't trying to prove anything big. I just didn't want to waste good timing. You were found buried under several metric tons of rock. The timing was not good." She smiled faintly. "It was until it wasn't." Later that day, Kelmor returned with a projection tablet. He placed it on the nearby stand and activated a hologram of the site where Camille had been found. The 3D model rotated slowly. "I reconstructed the collapse. Based on the debris orientation, your position should have been fatal." "Should have. There was an anomaly." She leaned forward. A protrusion from the main support beam deflected part of the rockfall. Had it not been present, the force would have crushed your chest cavity. "I don't remember that." "It is visible in the footage recovered from your wrist cam." He played it. Grainy, flickering but visible, a rusted segment of conduit wedged at an angle, forming a narrow crawl space just above where she had lain. "That conduit wasn't part of the original structure," she said. "Correct. It was a retrofit. Jury-rigged to bypass a faulty regulator. I installed it last year. No one approved it. You violated protocol. I saved my own life." Kelmor turned off the projection. "Such behavior is not documented in Virellian protocol. Then your protocol's incomplete." He stood. "I will amend the records." She looked at him for a long moment. You should include this too. If someone else had been trapped, I'd have done the same for them. I do not doubt that. He left without further comment. By the next cycle, Camille had walked the full length of the corridor without assistance. Clara met her at the end, holding a folded jumpsuit. Time to ditch the rope. You've earned pants. Camille took it, grinning. Alric appeared from the lift, out of uniform, still moving stiffly. We got a new protocol draft from the Accord, he said. Apparently, they're adding a clause about cross-species ingenuity tolerances. Clara raised an eyebrow. What's that mean? Means we're officially unpredictable. Camille laughed. Took them long enough. Alric turned to Kelmor, who had arrived silently. You sign off on that? I authored it. Camille adjusted her grip on the jumpsuit. Then I guess we're all learning. Kelmor turned to the others. The revised classification is complete. Humans are now designated adaptive. Class 1 with a cautionary note regarding non-standard decision-making. Alric nodded. Fair enough. Clara added, it's better than reckless. Camille leaned on the wall. We're still reckless. Just not only reckless. Kelmor paused. I will update the terminology. And for the first time, he did not write it down immediately.